All right, everybody. Today we have Jerry Brandehoff, our EVP and Chief Merchandising Officer. Today we have Jerry Brandehoff, our EVP and Chief Merchandising Officer.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Excited to have you. I want to tell you my first impression of you was we met, but then I was in the warehouse, as I'm apt to be many times, and I hear the saxophone solo from Careless Whisper.
Yes, indeed.
So I was like, yes, who is that?
Yep.
As a wind player, like I appreciate another wind player. There's so many guitarists and like rock and rollers. So I wanted to ask you, like, how did you get into music? Like, when did that start for you?
I think I got into music before I even knew what music was. And I think like it's just something you like, or you hear it, or it resonates and you gravitate towards it. But I don't know if this is how I got into music, but I can tell you my first musical memory. Awesome. And, I think obviously, they're nursery rhymes and stuff like that, but that's before we can remember anything. And I remember I was about 3.5 or so. And the reason why I know this is because my sister's 1.5 years older than me. And so she was in kindergarten, and my mom and I used to walk her to the bus, and she'd get on the bus, and it was like the happiest time for me, because I was like, oh, I'm getting my mom to myself.
Yeah.
So after my sister got on the bus, we would go back home, and in my memory, I don't think this really happened, but it happened every day. Like, this is what we did every day.
Yeah,
We'd walk into the school bus, we would go back home, and then, you've got to be old enough to know this, but like Hoover vacuums used to have these big bags, and you'd turn them on and the bag would inflate to suck up all the stuff. So I would get on the Hoover vacuum and ride it while she would vacuum, and we would put the 8-track tape in, Karen Carpenter, the 8-track tape in, and turn it to full volume, and my mom would sing along to Karen Carpenter. And I was just as happy as I could be, because I thought Karen's voice was so soothing and melodic, and the lyrics were just like, even as a little kid, they resonated with me, like I could understand them. And I just saw my mom so happy, and so it was like our special time. And I just remember like, looking back, like I didn't realize that was music, but it really stuck with me. Yeah. And then, as I kind of got a little bit older, I just remember babysitters, like they would bring their own music along. And I remember, cool. One of our babysitters, she's listening to the song, and she's like, oh my God, it's another one by Sedust. And I was like, who's Sedust? And she's like, no. The song is Another One Bites the Dust. It's Queen. And I was like, oh my God, I love that song. And so I was really into that song then too. But I think when when music started to mean something to me, as I was probably in fourth grade, I had an older cousin who took up the saxophone. Okay. And I idolized this cousin. I wanted to do everything they did and, be just like them. And so when I got into 5th grade and we could choose a musical instrument, I couldn't wait to get my saxophone. I didn't care about my grades or anything. All I wanted was the saxophone. And I don't even know if it registered that like I was going to be making music with this saxophone as much as like I loved the look of it, the color, the keys, the pearl on the keys, like the sound it made, the taste of the reed, like everything. And I just wanted to be the best saxophone player I could be. And so I practiced and practiced and practiced.
Oh my God.
And my goal was always, my cousin was a couple years older than me, was when we were in concert band together, I wanted to sit at a higher chair than she did. And my sophomore year when she was a senior, I got first chair and she got second chair. And so like all my hard work and dedication and everything really paid off. And I think that was just kind of my introduction into music and musical instruments. And it's really stuck with me. And the saxophone was such an important part of my junior high and high school years.
Like band or?
Yeah, being in band. And, it was like, of course you got called like band nerd and all that stuff, but like I didn't care because I just got so much from it. And I was always like, anything I do, I'm competitive, and so I wanted to just be the best, and so I wanted to get ones at contests, and I wanted to sit first chair, and I wanted to do, at our marching band competitions, like I wanted to go to state and everything like that. And it just taught me a lot about leadership. It taught me a lot about commitment. It taught me a lot about passion and how to apply your passion and create things that people can appreciate. And it gave me a ton of confidence. So it was a very, very, very important piece of my early life and development.
That's amazing. So it was part of public school, just music in public school.
You got it.
Okay,
Yeah,
so that's amazing.
Yeah, and I grew up on a farm. We didn't have a lot of money, and a saxophone was expensive.
Yeah.
And I never questioned whether I was getting one or how we were going to afford it or anything like that. I just knew that's what I had to have. And fortunately, my parents understood how important it was to me and bought me a saxophone. I think I had a Conselmer was my first one.
Oh wow. Okay.
And played it to death. I played it to death. So,
okay. So did the school didn't provide instruments? Y'all had to rent them or buy them or something? Do you remember?
I think you could have rented them.
Yeah.
But I was so passionate about it. I think maybe we did a rent to own, the trial period. I can't remember all those details, but yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's just so interesting because talking about access, and if people have, a lot of kids can't afford to rent them. So that's something I'm always talking with music and arts about, because all the ed reps that are out in the field, and so they'll tell me if schools need instruments, and just trying to really support the school systems.
Well, yeah, and I think it's a known fact that kids who play musical instruments or who are involved in music do better in school. And so by taking away kids' abilities to play musical instruments or to learn music is actually hindering their ability to learn and perform, which has long-standing impact. And so, the work that the foundation does is pretty incredible in terms of getting those instruments into the hands of kids in need and ultimately setting them up for greater successes throughout their life.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been research done that says that,
Yes.
But I think also from my perspective, it's the piece of identity. You don't want to go to school to do math.
Right.
You want to go and hang out with your friends and, band nerds, whatever. I was totally a band nerd, of course, and it didn't bother me either, because that's my identity. That's who I am. It just didn't faze me. And we had all of our other band mates that were in the same boat,
Well, I have a nephew. He's my favorite person in the world, and he started playing tuba in 5th grade, which was hilarious that he chose tuba. He's an athlete and a scholar, and I was just psyched that he wanted to learn a musical instrument too. And then tuba I thought was hilarious, and so he played it 5th and 6th, 7th grade. When he went into 8th grade, he was like, "Uncle Jerry, I have something to tell you." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm quitting the tuba." And I was kind of and I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Well, I hate the band teacher." And I was like, that's tough, because some band teachers can be really tough. And so I said to him, as you grow older, you should really try not to lose your ability to play music, read music, or be musically inclined. And at the time he was 13, 14. And, you could literally see his mind working. And he's like, "Well, why? Why?" Yeah. And I said, "Well, because as you get older, the more interesting you are, the more interesting people will be in you. And being able to play a musical instrument or pick up something is really interesting."
Yeah.
And his mind was just I could see him. And then it was a few months later, he told me that he picked up the drums, and he taught himself how to play drums. And then he's taught himself how to play guitar too.
Yeah.
And he's got a little sister. He's teaching her both too.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
It's probably his favorite thing in life. And while I was interviewing for this job, I was telling him, and every day he was texting me, "Did you get the job? Did you get the job? Did you get the job?" He wanted me to get this job so badly.
Yeah.
And then they live in Ohio, and they were coming to visit this past summer. And I said to both him and his sister, I said, "What's the first thing you want to do when you come to LA?" And they said, "We want to go to the Guitar Center in Hollywood."
Yes.
That was the number of everything
it's
to do in Los Angeles.
It's a destination.
That's what they wanted to do. And so it was the first thing we did, and we spent the entire afternoon there.
Oh, that's
great.
great.
They just picked up everything we're playing, and we had a blast.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
So it's really good to see what music and musical instruments mean to them too.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see what they'll ultimately do with it.
And maybe tuba was the gateway drug.
Maybe, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely,
yes.
As an oboist, I always wanted to rock out, and that doesn't happen, so I should have picked up guitar or something, but I never did.
Yeah, well, I'm picking up guitar now.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching myself harmonica too. So
nice.
Yeah, I want to be like a Bob Dylan or Springsteen.
Hell yeah.
And have it around my neck.
Oh my God,
Yeah,
yes. Well, let's talk about Jam Night, because that's something that I think is so cool about this company.
Yeah.
And so I know when I saw you were playing saxophone, but so are you gonna do your thing, your Bob Dylan thing for Jam Night?
I would like to. That's a goal of mine.
Wow,
I would actually love to. As much as I love to talk and have a voice that carries, I can't carry a tune.
Okay.
So I would love to be able to sing, play harmonica, and a little acoustic guitar.
A little talky-ish kind of singing.
You got it.
Bob Dylan-y.
Yeah.
He's never.
But speaking of Jam Night, it's kind of funny because I think when the recruiter reached out for this opportunity to talk to me about it, one of the first things she said was, "Do you play an instrument?" And I said, "Yes, I played saxophone." And then through every conversation, jam night came up, and it was like, okay, the pressure's on. And I was like, if I get this job, I need to pick the saxophone back up again, like quickly. And so when they offered me the job, it was immediately like, I think Adolfo said, like, "You're going to be playing Careless Whisper," and I was like, okay, I need to go get a new saxophone.
Like, I gotta brush that off.
But it was unbelievable how quickly you could pick back up. Like, I could still play my high school fight song without even thinking about it. Like, it's just so deeply
it's like
ingrained.
Deeply ingrained,
yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Anyway.
So let's talk about your role, because, well, you're going to be you're the newest board member for the foundation. So I'm super excited to have you on board, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But what is your role? Because this is a new role, right? That never existed before. And I'm not even sure I really understand it.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, I've worked in retail my whole life. I started working in retail in college, and I never thought that it would lead to a lifelong career, but I absolutely love it. And when I think about the things that I'm passionate about and the things that I'm good at, I get to do that every day in merchandising, and what merchandising means. And so I oversee the merchandising, planning, allocation, and private brands teams. And basically, our team is responsible for setting the strategic direction of the businesses. We work very, very closely with all the cross-functional partners, building an assortment from the ground up. We price the assortment. We work with the visual merchandising team to merchandise it, the allocators to get it out to stores, and then we monitor sales. So we're really held accountable for delivering against our financial objectives across those various functions. And then the private brands team, obviously, they're doing everything soup to nuts, from market research to developing new products, bringing them to life and getting them in the customer's hands. And so I love that my job gets to be a really great mix of super strategic, super creative. And some people may say, like, oh, well, you're buying off people's lines, or you're buying from other vendors' lines. But there's so much creativity that comes in crafting a strategy and bringing product to life in store through storytelling.
Yeah.
And then as I've grown in my career, the thing that I've gotten a ton of fulfillment from is developing individuals and developing teams. And so I love seeing, somebody on a Friday who's got something figured out that on Monday they were struggling with. And, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but there's just something so gratifying about seeing somebody realize potential that they didn't even know they had. And so I get to do all of those things interchangeably every day. And, there's so much opportunity here at Guitar Center, because we haven't had like a merchant leader that actually has like deep technical merchandising chops. And I grew up at Gap Inc., and that's a great training ground for merchants, and learn from some of the best leaders out there in retail, and I've just been able to apply those forward throughout my career. And it's really exciting to see what we've been able to do here in a relatively short time with Gabe coming on board and some of the new strategies. And then when I look at, I keep drawing an iceberg, and you see the tip of the iceberg above the water, and you think that's a massive sort of thing, but then it's what's below the surface where all the opportunity exists, and we keep uncovering all this amazing opportunity.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I just think we're going to continue to be able to bring better product through better storytelling and better experiences and better service to our customers every day. So it's really exciting to think about the runway that we have.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just kind of piggybacking on that, what, would that be a career choice for like young musicians, or, people who are trying to figure out what to do with their lives? I mean, did you ever think you were going to go into music as a professional, or you already knew?
I did when I was younger and playing saxophone, because it was so important to me. Yeah. I think you go, like, look, when you're growing up, you want to be an astronaut, and then you want to be a firefighter, and you want to be all these different things. And, I wanted
saxophonist, for sure.
I know, I wanted to be an architect, and I was part of this group of kids that we were called, I forget, it was like gifted and talented. And every so often they would have a profession come in and speak to us. This was in elementary school. Yeah. And I was like dead set on being an architect. I loved drafting and, creating floor plans and whatnot. And unfortunately, the architect that they had come in and speak to us was so down on the profession, and was just like, you're going to work really hard. You're not going to get any fulfillment. You don't get any like all this stuff. And I was just like, oh, I don't want to be an architect. And then I was like, what do I want to be? And I knew that music was a passion of mine. And I'd always heard, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I was like, and my cousin who I admired a lot was also going into music.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, okay, maybe that's something that I would do.
Yeah.
And then I started in the college of education, and ultimately ended up getting a degree in history, African American history, which was really strange
Oh,
at the time,
interesting.
given who I am. But I grew up in an all-white farming community, and I was just really interested and fascinated with anything that was different than me and wanted to learn as much as possible. And I thought that I would do civil rights law. That was the intent. But I started working retail in college and just absolutely fell in love with it, and just saw I didn't necessarily think it would be this long-term career, but lo and behold, here it is, more than 30 years later, and it's been an awesome career where I've been able to work for great companies, learn a ton, meet incredible people, and then land in this role, which I just feel like is a culmination of everything that I've
in your life
loved.
leading up to this point. Yeah,
And so
I know exactly
really
how you feel.
I feel, both thrilled and a tremendous sense of responsibility to deliver what we need to deliver for this organization, because I know how important Guitar Center is in the musical instrument industry. Yeah. And if we're not successful, the industry really suffers. And
it's a really good way of putting it.
It's a lot of responsibility that I take very seriously, and it's also an honor to be in this role. So
that's great. So what are some of the things that are different? I mean, I know you're fairly new. You started in February.
Yep, February. Yep.
So what are some of the things that are different, or the through lines? Maybe you were at Wayfair and Williams Sonoma.
Yep.
So what are some of those through lines, or is it just totally different?
No, there's tons of through lines. There's like foundational work that comes into play regardless of the product category or regardless of the customer segment. Yeah. And so many of those foundational things, like crafting a line plan, determining demand spaces. And what I mean by demand spaces are, as you build out an assortment, you look across sort of the X and the Y axis, and let's just say on the Y axis, you've got price band, and then on the X axis, you've got functionality, or maybe you've got brand. And so you've got to build out what your needs are across those various dimensions as you build the assortment from the ground up. So regardless of whether you're doing Hermes handbags, or you're doing Maytag refrigerators, or you're doing Gibson guitars, like those fundamentals are still in place. Yeah. And the way that the merchants need to be the voice of the customer. You've got to constantly be out there in the market. You've got to be talking to your vendors. You've got to understand what's happening from a market and trend perspective. Constantly evolving to your customers' needs and trying to anticipate them, be one step ahead of them. All of those things are foundational. I think things that are different in this world, it's a very small industry, and we represent such a major part of the market in terms of our market share. Yeah. And so there's just all that nuance in the relationships and how tightly knit the industry is. I think that the industry admittedly would say they're not as strategic as they could be. They're not as long-term thinkers as they could be. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity to continue to partner very, very closely with our key vendors to build out some of those capabilities. And I'm really excited about being able to do that too. I mean, I sat in a room with 30 or 40 of the Fender executives, and I was just like, look, like, I know what I know, but I know you guys know so much more than I do about this industry. Yeah. But I want to be able to bring some like practicality and rigor and structure to the way that we're operating. Yeah. And everyone's been incredibly open and welcoming to that, and like complimentary that like we see the impact you're making, and so that it feels really good. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of efficiencies that we can add to the way that we operate.
Yeah, that's great. That's exciting. I'm excited to see what we're already seeing your imprint on things. So I'm like excited to see even beyond.
I get so excited to get out of bed every day, and when I walk out the door every night, I'm invigorated by the challenges that we have and the progress that we're making and the opportunity that lies ahead. So it feels like the universe guided me to this place where I'm just super happy being in this spot right now.
Absolutely. So talk about a little bit about your interest in the foundation, or you're I hate to say that one of the few people in my 4 years that have been really excited about it and interested in it and really wanted to take it to the next level. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
I think, something happened to me a few years back where I had been living in New York for quite a long time. I love New York City. I had moved to California for a job, but I really wanted to get back to New York. And when I came back to New York, it was just sort of at the tail end of the pandemic. So in the fall of 21. And I was just shocked at how dirty the city was, how much it had changed in the year and a half or 2 years since I'd been there last. Garbage everywhere, litter. And I also felt like that the city had become apathetic about it, meaning like regular, everyday New Yorkers were just leaving their trash behind. And I was like, there's a trash can right there. Go through it, And so I was like, okay, I can either let this really bother me or I can do something about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I'm going to do something about it. And so I crafted, silly me, just like a 5-point plan to help clean up the city by bringing the government, businesses, and residences together. And it got circulated a little bit. Some people found out about it. I met some city council members, brought some cleanup crews together. And I got a lot of gratification from that and satisfaction. It was like, okay, I'm making a difference. I'm making a difference. And it made me realize that that I have this ability to be a force for good. And I think, everybody has that ability to be a force for good.
Exactly.
And so, anyway, ended up kind of creating or co-founding this idea called The Longest Table, which brings people out into the street to celebrate a meal together in the street. And we did it the first year, 500 or so people showed up, and we're about to do the 4th version this upcoming weekend. We're expecting somewhere around 1,700 people to show up.
Wow.
We've also created a toolbox, and I think about 45 cities around the US have done it so far this year. And there's several more that are doing this upcoming weekend. So anyway, that idea of force for good has just become a platform for me. And so when I heard about the foundation as I was interviewing, I was like, if I do get this job, I really, really want to get involved in the foundation and help it be a greater force for good.
Yeah.
And so that's what made it really interesting to me. And then I think just knowing that, again, how important my instrument was to me when I was younger, knowing that we have the ability and, quite frankly, the responsibility to do that for others is like, wow. To know that we can change someone's life through a musical instrument, give them confidence, teach them skills, various other things. For me, why wouldn't I want to be involved in that and actually help create a bigger platform out of it? And so that was my interest level. And I honestly, I can't wait to see where we go with it.
It's going to be great. Yeah. I'm super excited. Do you want to talk a little bit about the merch?
Yeah. Let's see how to talk about the merch there. Well, I think
I've given away all my shirts.
Well,
I literally wore that shirt for the entire first 6 months of the year.
I think I wear it too much. I think mine's getting a little ratty, but I mean, the support musicians t-shirts that were, I think you gave me one, or I saw Gabe wearing one, and I was like, oh my God, I want that t-shirt. It was just the perfect, coming from, working at Gap and Calvin Klein and various stuff, I know apparel, and I was like, it's the perfect weight, it's the perfect color, the graphic looks great. And so you gave it to me, and I started wearing it, and I would not wear it. I'd wear it, getting on a plane, walking around, and people would stop me and say, I love your t-shirt. Oh, tell me about that. And it was just such a great conversation opener to be able to talk about the work that the foundation does. And so it was well, if there's that much appetite and interest in this product, let's sell it, and let's actually have it benefit the foundation. And so we were able to work with a local vendor here that was able to produce them. And we're let's do a range of colors in the t-shirt. Let's do a baseball cap in the tote. Then $5 from the sale of every single one of them will go directly to the foundation, which is really exciting. So this will be our first year launching I think we've carried it in the past, but not to this degree.
Yeah, no.
And then we're building in an entire campaign, a donation drive, in the hopes of raising $1 million for the foundation this Q4.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we get a lot of really good learnings and feedback on both the product and how the program works, and then we can just grow it from there.
Absolutely.
But we're already talking about some really cool guitar straps and picks and various other things that are less about apparel and really more geared towards the musician.
Exactly.
But we've shown it in our Beacon, our mock store.
Yeah.
And I think it's the single thing that I've gotten the most call outs from. People have been like, oh my God, thank you for doing this. This is so great. I can't wait to buy this. How do I get this? When can I get this? Et cetera. And so we're giving one to every associate in the store. So all the folks on the sales team and operations team will get black ones. The lessons folks will get red ones.
Oh, okay.
And we're really excited to see what it's going to be able to do.
I'm just so stoked. I can't tell you, because that, I've been trying to find the product and find the thing. And at first I was like, well, I don't want to do shirts because, you have to deal with sizes. But, you just embrace that as well. And I was thinking it's kind of like an impulse buy where, people can buy the tote to put their stuff in and say. So I've been thinking about this for 4 years and literally just had so many, ways so I was going to present it to you and I never really even had to. It just was done. The next thing I know, I'm like, oh my God,
I love it.
It's done. So no, I love it. I just got chills because it was honestly,
good.
And the thing I love, it's called Support Musicians, because I've seen a lot of those things that say support live music, and I just thought, well, no, we support the person.
Totally. Yeah.
It's the musician that we're supporting, not the music. I mean, yes, the music obviously, but so here's the hat right here.
Yes.
So I'm super excited about that, and thank you for just making that happen.
Absolutely.
It's so amazing. You don't understand how hard I work to like get that lift, and then to have somebody just like do it.
Yes. Excellent.
So.
You just need that last mile or something like that.
Yeah, just like I was like folding them all up and putting them in boxes and giving them to y'all, and I just knew everybody would love it. And then Gabe wore it at the event, and that made me so happy. I was just like,
I know.
Well, Gabe was so funny. To wear mine.
He's like, what should I wear? And I was like, this is what you should wear. And then he brought in a bunch of options. I was in the boardroom in a meeting. He calls me and he's like, I need your help.
Oh my God!
Because
I told him that you said you would style him, so he took you up on it.
He totally took me up on it, and he looked great. He looked really great. I think he had an Armani velvet blazer on with his support musicians t-shirt.
Yeah,
it was
totally.
Great. Yeah.
Oh my God, I loved it. Talk a little bit about I actually wanted to go back because first of all, I was like terrified of vacuum cleaners when I was a kid. So that was like such an interesting story. And maybe your mom like didn't want you to have an adverse trauma to vacuum cleaners. I still do. But like the aspect of giving music, you mentioned something really interesting. Well, your mom, your cousin, the architect guy that came in who actually had an adverse effect on here, but that so many people are talking about people that have given them the gift of music or given them an instrument or, that's such an inspirational thing, if you think about teachers, that they could be responsible for you quitting band.
Totally.
That's like heartbreaking to me.
Yes.
And it's really just all about the people.
Yeah.
And so, and the other thing you touched on that I'd love to hear a little bit more about just is like corporate social responsibility, because I find, I always worked for a nonprofit traditional, we raise money and there's donors and blah, blah. And here we're kind of in this weird, we do have donors, we have people that are interested, but we're also a corporation, and just kind of like trying to find that sweet spot, because I feel like it's definitely there. But how do you feel about, corporations as people or corporate responsibility?
Yeah, I think it can be a touchy subject, but I do think corporations have a responsibility to give back. I mean, corporations, like, they take a lot, and so like there is a responsibility to give back, and there's some that do it really, really well, and one of the companies I used to work for had a partnership with St. Jude, and I just thought it was amazing the work that they did in raising money and awareness for St. Jude, and they became a grand sponsor, and I just think it's a great place to be able to support the communities where you operate in and the people that you're around, and wherever you have the opportunity to do good, like, do it. It comes back to you. So yeah, beyond that, I think it's there's nuance to everything, right? And so I think I'm glad that we have this platform to be able to give back and make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, and it wasn't really happening,
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. We help over 200 schools or organizations a year. We just did something with St. Jude's. Actually, they asked us for a guitar for their auction. Yeah. So I was happy to do that as well. And I'm just really excited about the opportunities. But so just the idea of giving music, I feel like that's our role. Yeah. That's what we're supposed to do. So I'm just really excited about that.
Yeah, I feel the same way, and I not to go back to my nephew, but like, I don't know if he would have pursued the drums and then the guitar had I not mentioned that to him. And then it's so great that then his sister is now too, and when they were out here, like, my favorite thing was listening to her sing. She's taking piano and voice lessons,
cool.
and she's 8 and she knows every word to every Benson Boone song, like, at the top of her lungs. And it was just so great listening to her in the back of the car as we were driving around. That's amazing. Yeah, now, like, I miss it. I'm like, I need to call her and just hear her sing for me.
Just sing for me. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Benson Boone. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
Who knew?
Yeah.
That's amazing. We did this show or this event in Nashville with Drew Baldridge. Do you know him?
Yeah.
And he sang, it was at the Children's Hospital, Ryan Seacrest Foundation. And there was this one little girl, she probably about the same, like 8, 9 years old. She knew the words to every song of his. Yeah. And I was just like, how does she know the word? I didn't even know this song until like last week. Right. And it was just like, it was so heartwarming. It was like the song Tough People.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so you're like in the hospital with this kid, and it's just like, again, I'm getting chills. Goosebumps, but it was amazing how kids just radiate to music and love songs and know everything.
Oh, it's so true. Music permeates every aspect of our life. It's the thing that, like, binds us together and you know, keeps us human. So,
absolutely. Do you want to talk a little bit about private brands here? Because I've always find that people don't really know about our private brands, and I'm always trying to. I mean, we give away thousands of Mitchell guitars every year. What's your feeling on that?
Our private brand business is very underrepresented in our mix, and I think we've got a big opportunity. I think over time, the private brand portfolio has gotten too broad, and so the brands don't really stand for anything. And you've got duplication across some of the brands, but there are some brands that are really, really important and viewed almost as, you know, national brands, whether that's Livewire, Harbinger, you know, Mitchell is sort of an up and coming one. But I think we've got a big opportunity to refocus and rationalize the private brands, meaning like back to that sort of what I was talking about with the demand spaces, like what's a brand matrix and what's the brand's role in the assortment and its reason for being, and who's the customer, what needs do we service for that customer. So we're deep in that work right now, and I'm really excited about how I think we're going to be able to do so much more with less. And so our goal is we'd love to be able to double the private brands business in the next 3 years, 3 to 5, because the development timelines are longer. But I think we'll do that by doing fewer brands and really focusing on making them meaningful to our customers' lives. So I think there's a ton of opportunity there. The beauty in private brands is we control the pricing, they're better margins, they're great add-on brands, they're generally more affordable for beginner musicians, but then in some cases they're equal quality to the national brands, but we can give them a better price. And so I think there's just a lot of benefit to them, both for the consumer and for us internally as our business.
It's super exciting. I love that. So how do you, I mean, you already mentioned this a little bit about having a responsibility about what's being put in the stores, but I'd just love to hear a little bit more. I mean, because I have a nonprofit background, so I know nothing about retail, never even worked in retail, like waited tables when I was younger. So, you know, my sister worked at, where did she work? Like Dine West or something. So, but, you know, I just always felt like that was, you know, so much work. But how are you deciding what goes into the stores? I mean, a lot of research, I'm sure, and like talking to customers, but.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, it takes a lot. It might seem very easy, or maybe it doesn't seem easy, but, you know, I think you've got to have a strategy. Like, what are you trying to do? How big are you trying to make the business? And then I think it really starts from the strategy and then the assortment. And so, for instance, we are, like, if we think about some of the work that we're doing right now in guitars in particular, electric guitars, which is our biggest category, I believe that we are way over assorted. It's not that easy to shop. Customers don't know where to start. I don't know that it's clear on what we're standing for, who the important brands are. And so it starts also, if you look at, you know, across our fleet of 300 stores, we've got sort of an average store footprint, which is 10 to 12,000 square feet. We've got some that are smaller and we've got some that are larger. And then you've got variation in the sales volume that each store delivers too. And so you can't have the same assortment in every single store. And so first you've got to understand your space constraints and the volume opportunities. And then we look at, for instance, market share. So we've got the big national brands. What market share do they have in the US market? For instance, let's just say Fender has X% market share. What penetration of our assortment do they represent? And then what penetration of our sales do they represent? And so it's looking across all of those things. So you've got like a starting point, which is, I'll call that the science piece of it. So there's like data and facts and consumer insights and stuff. And then there's the art piece of it, is like, how do you bring that together to deliver an assortment through strong storytelling for the customer? And so it really is always about striking that balance of art and science. And, you know, there's this whole idea of data-driven merchandising, which I absolutely hate. And people will criticize me for it because like data is king. But I think data-empowered merchandising is the way to go. And so I think you take the data, and if you just take the data at face value, you will make different decisions than if you nuance it through a gut or an artistic lens or a storytelling point of view, or like the double clicking below and being like, oh, oh, well, that performed well because we actually had much more inventory. Like we over inventoried that, so it performed well. If it had even inventory, what would it be? And could we better spend those inventory dollars on a different SKU or a different idea? And so it's digging into all that. So it really is that mix of art and science, that creative and strategic coming together. And then I think there's a stat that something like merchants get 70% of all decisions wrong. And so that means you really only get 30% right. So it's like how right or how wrong is this answer? How right is this answer and how wrong can we be, essentially? And so like you're constantly having to weigh that. And then, I've always found value in testing things. So you develop a hypothesis based on a set of data, you craft a test, you learn from the test, and then you scale quickly. And so that way, if you fail small. If you're successful, you can scale it really quickly and win big. So that's sort of the approach to how you build out an assortment.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's fascinating. And one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is that people, for a lot of people, their only access to instruments is the store. And how different an experience that is from like online, especially if you're a drummer, a young kid who's a drummer, who lives in an apartment, they don't have the opportunity to play drums and maybe, they don't even have the opportunity at school. So this is like their one access point. And the fact that it's just like such an inviting place for them to come in. And I love the lessons aspect. That's just, it's like, so even if you don't have access to the instrument, you've got the lessons aspect. And so that was
one of my favorite. I think I was maybe 2-3 weeks into the role, and we went out with our head of stores, our head of marketing, and Gabe, our CEO, to visit stores. And we were in one of the stores, I think La Mesa, at around 3:30, 4 o'clock. So kids are just getting out of school, and we're standing there in the lessons area having a lessons conversation with the lessons lead, and these kids are running in the door and wrapping their arms around their instructor's legs. Because, they only came up to like their instructor's waist. And so they're wrapping their arm around and I was like, wow, like we're doing so much more than just selling musical instruments. And like, I got goosebumps at that point. I was like, this is so cool that kids love coming here because they're going to be able to learn and express their passion and be creative. And it just like, that was amazing. So I think it's so cool that we have our lessons business and get to do that so much more than just selling product.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fascinating. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and having this conversation. And like I said, we already see your footprint, and so I'm just looking forward to seeing so much more.
Thank you. Having a blast, and can't wait to do it all together. Woo! So thanks for having me.
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. You made it to the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it. It was so inspirational for me. If you enjoyed it, please like us, please follow us, subscribe, comment in the comments, do all the things. Go to guitarcenterfoundation.org, make a donation, help us continue to give music to people who need it the most.